According to the FBI, more than 60% of all violent crimes are committed by somebody who the victim knew personally. This isn't going to be one of them. When Ryan and Maya decide to spend the night in a remote Oregon town, they quickly find out that the locals aren't as innocent as they seem, and within a matter of hours, they're about to be hunted down by a trio of mask-wearing maniacs with a plan that's so brutal. You're going to be shocked when you see how it ends. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the masked killers in The Strangers Chapter 1. This couple is about to have the most terrifying night of their lives. Sprinting through the forest, this guy who looks like he's dressed for a business meeting almost runs straight off of a collapsed bridge, forcing him to turn around and start heading in the other direction. He keeps looking back over his shoulder so much that he accidentally clips his foot on a stump, sending him tumbling back down the bottom of a hill where he snaps his back on the rocks. The man still tries his best to crawl away, but he's quickly chased down by a guy in a burlap sack who stops just long enough to let him think about what's going to happen before kicking him to the ground and finishing the job with an axe. That makes one down with 3 more to go. Several years later, this woman Maya and her boyfriend Ryan are on a cross-country road trip for their 5th anniversary. They're traveling through a remote part of Oregon on their way to Portland when Ryan says that he's getting hungry. And with 300 miles still left to go, they decide to stop for lunch at a place called Carol's Diner in the small town of Venus, but that was their biggest mistake. The handful of people in there having lunch immediately clock them as being from out of town, but Carol herself still welcomes them in, telling the couple to pick out their own seats. After a pretty standard meal besides some awkward small talk with a few of the locals, they're paying their bill when Maya notices a missing poster on the wall behind the counter, offering a $10,000 reward for any information about a man named Jeff who disappeared back in 2017. Carol and the waitress can both remember the guy, and they say that this diner was the last place that he was ever seen alive. So Maya and Ryan decide that they better get back on the road before they end up on one of their posters on the wall too. They don't end up making it far though, because when they get back to the car, they find that it's now suddenly refusing to start. The local mechanic Rudy notices that they're having trouble and quickly points out that they're in need of a new alternator, but they have to get the part from a shop in the next town over, which means that the couple won't be going anywhere until tomorrow. The local hotel's closed, but they just so happen to know a guy with an Airbnb not too far out of town where the two of them can spend the night, and right now it isn't looking like they have much of a choice either way. Even though Ryan tells them all straight up that he thinks that the whole thing is a scam, Maya apologizes and says that they'll take the cabin, thanking the waitress when she volunteers to drive them after she gets off of work. Unlike her boyfriend, she's actually excited to spend the night. But what they don't realize is that this is the last road trip that they're ever going to take.
Okay, a new alternator? Really? Yeah, right, Rudy. I gotta agree with Ryan here. That sounds like a scam to me, and at least one of them caught on to that right away. But as for Maya, she's still living in denial, so should they be suspicious? Well, let's look at the evidence first. The car that they're driving is a 2024 BMW X5M. It's a sweet ride, and since it basically just rolled off of the lot, it should still have relatively low mileage and be in perfect condition. That's why I'm a little skeptical when Rudy here says that they need a new alternator. But before we decide if he's telling the truth, it might help us to first understand what an alternator even is. Basically, your alternator converts mechanical energy from the engine into electricity, which it uses to supply power to the car's different electrical systems and keeps the battery charged for the next time that you need it. The one in this BMW is made by the high-end manufacturer Bosch, one of the most trusted and reliable brands on the market, and generally speaking, most alternators from any manufacturer should last about 7 to 10 years, making it highly unlikely that theirs just kicked the bucket completely out of nowhere. Before going to the alternator, you'd almost always want to check if your battery is holding a charge first, since those have a much shorter lifespan. Trying to jumpstart the car would have been the best option, and even if the battery needed to be replaced, then that's an easy fix. That should only take a matter of an hour or two at most to get them back on the road. So the mechanic completely skipping that process and saying that their only option is to get a part from a town that's 7 hours away is definitely a good reason to be suspicious. But now that they're stuck in this position, what else can they even do? I'd start with checking for any evidence of tampering, like signs of recent damage or loose connections to help the alternator. That'll help us know if we can really trust anyone in this town. We mentioned trying to jumpstart the car, but what if that doesn't work and they really need the new part? Well, the town that they're in, Venus, isn't a real place. But maybe we can see from Maya's GPS that Carol's Diner is near Dixie, a small community near the Oregon-Idaho border. Rudy here says that he has to get the part from Eugene, a 7-hour drive. But actually, there's a BMW dealer in Boise, Idaho, which is only about 90 minutes back the way they came. Taylor Swift would probably call her private jet, but as part of their service package, BMW will send a truck to transport your vehicle to the nearest dealership in the event of a breakdown. Right now, it should be about 3 p.m., which means that if they call soon, they should be able to get back to Boise by around 6 o'clock for some dinner and a stay at a real hotel. This just might work out. As for other options, they could offer to pay someone from town to drive them north to Baker City, or south to the city of Ontario, which are about only 30 minutes away, where they can find a safer place to spend the night. Sometimes it's good to be a little paranoid, but it looks like Maya is going to learn that lesson the hard way.
The waitress drops them off just a little before dark, leaving Maya and Ryan to settle in and get comfortable for the night. The place definitely has a bit of that old-fashioned charm to it, but it isn't long before they realize that the refrigerator is not getting cold. There's a note on the fridge with the owner's phone number, so Maya steps out back to leave them a message, never suspecting that there's someone else already watching her from the trees. A few hours pass until around 9:30 that night, when the two of them are out on the porch fantasizing about where they might settle down someday. They eventually start making out and decide to head back inside for some more privacy, when all of a sudden they're rudely interrupted by several loud bangs on the cabin's front door. Whoever it is knocks even harder just a few seconds later, so Ryan here finally goes over and opens the door, only to find a strange young kid standing there, whose face is completely hidden by the darkness. The kid asks them if someone named Tamara is there in a way that's weirdly suspicious. But when they tell her that she's got the wrong place, she just turns around and walks away without saying another word. Confused, Ryan steps out after her, wondering where she could have come from, when there aren't supposed to be any other families around for miles. He notices that someone loosened the light bulb above the porch, but when he looks away to twist it back in, the girl suddenly disappears from the end of the driveway, and they decide that they should probably just go back inside to get some rest. They're sitting around the fire having another couple talk, when Ryan goes to look for his inhaler, only to realize that he must have left it in their car back in town. He remembers an old motorcycle out behind the house, so he decides that he can just take that thing over to the shop and get it, promising Maya that he'll pick up something for them to eat on his way back home. Just a few minutes later, Maya here is FaceTiming her friend Gabby when she hears a loud crash from somewhere outside. Thinking that it must be Ryan, she quickly hangs up and goes running over to the window, but by the time that she gets there to look, she can already hear whoever's out there making their way up the steps towards the front porch. Suddenly, there's another series of aggressive knocks at the cabin door, and it immediately hits her that this is definitely not her boyfriend. Worried, Maya approaches the door and asks who's there, only to realize that it's the same kid still looking for this Tamara person. When she looks out through the peephole, she can see the shadowy figure standing there as they quickly cover up their end of the glass. Taking a second look just a moment later, this time it seems like they really might have left, but another loud knock on the door proves that they're still around, and Maya here is so distracted by their presence that she doesn't even notice another intruder already sneaking through the house right behind her. Finally, she hears the person outside walking away and nervously takes a seat back on the couch, but that's when she realizes that her cell phone has somehow moved from the table where she left it and wound up on a shelf on the other side of the room. When she goes to pick it up, someone starts singing Rockabye Baby from out behind the kitchen, leading her to creep over there and take a look. She accidentally jump scares herself when she turns on the garbage disposal instead of the light. But just when she's starting to think that she might be overreacting, she hears the unmistakable noise of someone opening the back door. After going to check it out, she still can't find a trace of anyone on the property, so she puts on a record to help her calm down while she waits for Ryan to hopefully come back soon, never realizing just how much danger that they're already in.
Okay, seriously, Maya? That's it? You're kidding me, right? Maya here, having almost zero reaction to all of this, is borderline insane. And I'm starting to think that maybe the killers should be the ones scared of her. At this point, just being anywhere near a cabin in the woods should put you on the edge already. But once the creepy little kid showed up at the door, that was the time to really start getting worried. Since the cabin is so remote, it'd be highly unusual for a child to somehow end up all the way out there alone in the middle of the night. Even opening the door for her was a bad idea, since it could have easily been a trick to scout out how many people were inside the house, and how capable they'd be of defending themselves once the real attack starts. Now, as unlikely as it is, the girl's first time knocking could have been just a mistake, but once she came back for round 2, that was a sure sign that something was up. And it's no coincidence that all of this started happening when they knew that Maya was alone in the house. Somehow, she still hasn't realized just how bad the situation actually is. But the last time that I checked, phones don't magically teleport around the room on their own. And there's a massive difference between a weird little kid messing around outside the house and clearly hearing the sound of the back door opening. Right at that moment, the first thing that I would have done is call up the local police. Instead of saying that I was worried about myself, I'd tell them that I thought that the kid needed help. That would get them out there, and would also help me feel more safe about actually having to convince the police that I was really in danger. While on the phone with them, I would immediately lock the exterior doors and windows and pull the curtains shut so that nobody could see inside the house. I'd also close every door inside the house so that I'd hear the noises if there was someone in there with me as they moved between the rooms. Once we're all locked down, all that's left to do is get our hands on a weapon and hole up in a defensible position until help finally arrives. I might try calling the owner Joe again too, since maybe he knows who these kids are and can give us more advice about what to do. But as we're about to see, they're just going to ignore the red flags until it's already too late.
Maya sits down at the piano and starts to play as she tries to relax, but she can't shake the feeling that there's still someone else lurking around. She turns out to be absolutely right about this, as the reflection in the mirror suddenly reveals that there's a guy in a scarecrow mask silently watching her. But maybe it's just the repairman finally there to fix that broken fridge. Still feeling nervous, she decides that the best thing to do when there may or may not be a killer around is to pop into the bathroom for a quick shower. And, uh-oh, there's the repairman again catching a quick peek. But she avoids getting the psycho treatment for now, having no idea that she could be attacked at any second. She's drying her hair when all of the power to the house suddenly flickers and goes out, leaving her stranded in complete darkness. Using her phone light, she carefully sneaks through the house in search of the breaker box, jumping at every strange noise that she hears from out of the shadows. In one of the closets, Maya discovers something incredibly strange. Behind the rack of normal clothes, there are several creepy-looking Halloween masks, all hanging up on the wall, but still no sign of the breaker. And now she's really starting to get creeped out. Finally, she finds the box on the wall in one of the hallway closets, only to drop her phone as she reaches for it. And when she picks it back up, she suddenly comes face to face with an intruder wearing a doll face mask standing just a few feet away from her. Terrified, Maya instantly takes off screaming towards the second floor of the house, running for her life as the intruder slowly walks after her. With nowhere else to go, she quickly takes cover in one of the upstairs closets, where she cowers in the corner as she hears footsteps searching for her just outside. After a tense moment of waiting to see what they'll do next, the footsteps eventually just stop outside of the closet door, and as they swing it open, she's relieved to see that it's just Ryan, finally back from his trip into town. She tries her best to explain what happened, but Ryan says that he didn't see anyone in the house, so she leads him over to the breaker box and they flip the lights back on. They can't find any signs of trouble, but Maya still insists that she saw someone in a mask right there in the bedroom. Taking a look for himself, himself, Ryan here makes up his mind that she must have been scared by a clown painting that's hanging up on a wall, and basically starts gaslighting her into thinking that it was all in her head. But he's quickly proven wrong when they hear another loud series of knocks on the front door. Furious, he storms out onto the porch and finds the same damn kid once again standing there in the shadows at the end of the driveway. This time, Ryan confronts the girl and chases her off, promising Maya that some weird kid can't really be that much of a threat anyway, as they head back inside to eat. But boy, if he knew just how wrong that he really was.
Okay, Maya here might not want to believe that they're really in danger, but letting Ryan gaslight her into thinking that she made it all up is going to be an incredibly bad decision. I mean, there's a pretty serious difference between just being suspicious that you might have a home invader and actually seeing the undeniable proof right before your eyes. Have you ever got the feeling that someone's watching you? That's because back in the day when humans had to compete with other predators for survival, we developed our finely tuned senses to help us pick up on cues from our environment that could be signs of danger. The ones with the stronger senses passed the genes onto their offspring, and that's partially why we have such a large range of peripheral vision, the area that you can see out of the corners of your eyes when you're looking straight ahead. Your peripheral vision covers two fields. Right and left is called the temporal field and covers about 180 degrees. Up and down, the superior field covers about 120. Within this range, our vision is highly sensitive to movements to help us detect potential threats. This means that Maya here should have definitely noticed the intruder's reflection in the mirror above her while she was playing the piano. She also clearly heard footsteps on the wooden floorboards, and just that alone would have had me calling the popo without a second thought. Maya here must have some pretty terrible survival skills if her instincts told her to run upstairs and then hide in the first closet that she saw. And that's without even grabbing something from one of those shelves behind her to club the creep as soon as they opened the door. At least they're safe for now, kinda, but there's absolutely no way in hell you're gonna tell me that a painting of a clown explains the entire physical person that was just standing a few inches away from her. Like, at all. Plus, it's impossible for the girl to have knocked on the door and then made it all the way to the end of the driveway so fast, which is a guaranteed sign that they're dealing with more than one intruder. You know, the way that I see it, they've got two options: either leave now or try to secure the house and stay the night. Leaving would be my first choice, yeah. But it's not exactly going to be easy considering the circumstances. For transportation, they still have the motorcycle, which they could use to drive back into town. Otherwise, they could try calling an Uber or a taxi service for a ride. But it might be hard to find one considering that they're in the middle of nowhere and it's already late at night. If they have to run on foot, then that's when things get more interesting, but we'll circle back to that part of the plan later. With all that being said, it might be safer just to stay put in the house for now. If they're going to stay, then the first thing that they should do is completely lock down the house. I mean, they need to lock the doors, pull some curtains, push some furniture in front of the doors that lead outside, and maybe even attach something noisy like wind chimes to the handles so that they'll be alerted if anyone tries to get in. Obviously, I'd also call the police, but it's going to take a while for them to get there, so it'd be smart to find something that they can use to defend themselves. I'd start by searching for a rifle or a shotgun since this is a hunting cabin, but other options like knives from the kitchen, tools like axes or hammers, broken parts of furniture, or even something that you can put together with duct tape, Dead Rising style, should do the trick. They need to stick together at all times and search the house room to room. That way they can make sure that the place is definitely empty. Once they've done that, I'd pick one secure room with a good enough escape route to stay in, and then barricade myself inside for the rest of the night. One thing not to overlook is plugging their phones in if they can, because they need to keep them charged for as long as possible. And it's probably only a matter of time before these creeps cut the power again. It's never a bad idea to overreact when it comes to survival, but Ryan here is determined to ignore the red flags, and they're going to learn the hard way that listening to him was a bad choice.
A little while later, they're sitting around the kitchen table discussing their plans for tomorrow when Maya notices something really strange. The ketchup from Ryan's burger is starting to get messy, like really messy, and when they look up above them, they suddenly realize that it isn't actually ketchup at all. Somehow, someone came along and hung a dead chicken from the kitchen ceiling, and now there's no denying that there really was a person in the house. Panicking, they both get up and start rushing around the house to lock the doors and windows, but as Maya deadbolts the front door, somebody chops straight through with an axe just a few inches from her face. It's the Scarecrow guy again, and he is definitely not there to fix the fridge. As the man breaks through the door and lets himself in, Maya and Ryan quickly retreat into the master bedroom, where they shove a dresser in front of the door to slow him down. After using what must be 100% of their survival skills just for that part of the plan, they decide that the only thing left to do is to sit in a corner and cower in fear, as they wait for Scarecrow to come chop their heads off. At the same time, Dollface emerges from somewhere on the second floor, and a third attacker, Pinup, joins the others in the living room as her friend starts to play the piano, tormenting the couple while they sit helplessly in the bedroom waiting to see what happens next. Eventually, Ryan gets fed up and decides to go for the door, but as soon as he does, Scarecrow here eventually starts chopping his way through, forcing them to take cover behind the bed. After making a big hole in the door, the man just stands there for a moment staring the couple down, without saying a single word, before quietly turning and walking off with the rest of his friends, leaving Ryan and Maya badly shaken up, but otherwise unharmed for now. Ryan waits a minute before creeping over to the door and eventually comes to the conclusion that the people must be gone. He's convinced that they're just doing this as a way to mess with them, and decides that their best option is to go for the motorcycle that's still parked in front of the house. As they quietly make their way back out into the living room, they find Ryan's phone out on the counter completely smashed to pieces, and with no way to call for help, their only choice is to make a run for the bike. It's sitting right where Ryan left it, but the moment that they get close, the entire bike suddenly goes up in flames, detonating in a huge explosion as Scarecrow watches them from the shadows on the other side of the yard. Running back to the house, they retreat back inside and take cover in the bathroom, listening in as the strangers follow behind them again and start playing old-timey music from the record player. Ryan quickly searches the room for a weapon, and ends up finding a straight razor hidden somewhere in the medicine cabinet, but that still won't be enough to turn the tables, so they decide that they need to come up with another escape plan before it's too late.
Okay, well, I guess Maya was right about the creepy guy after all, huh, Ryan? The situation here might be looking pretty bad right now, but that doesn't mean that they can't still salvage it if they finally start making the right choices. First things first, they need to get prepared to defend themselves instead of just running back and forth between different rooms and cowering in the corners. There might come a moment where they have to fight, and when that happens, I'd suggest not going for the Scarecrow first. Not only does he seem like the most intimidating opponent, but he's also their leader, which means that the others might back off if he goes down. It's a good sign that Ryan was finally smart enough to find a weapon, but one little razor still won't be enough to fight off 3 armed opponents, unless he's secretly John Wick and we just don't know it yet. Maya should be looking for a weapon too if she's going to back him up, and luckily, the bathroom is full of options. You've got the lid from the toilet tank, the towel rack, and all kinds of other random items that could be used as blunt objects, with a pretty effective reach. There's also shaving cream that you can use to make the floor more slippery, and hairspray and cleaning products that can work as makeshift pepper spray or even a flamethrower if you can combine them with Maya's lighter. Now, Maya here is about to suggest sneaking out through the cabin's crawl space, which is a pretty good idea, and it can also be used as a good offensive opportunity. As they're crawling through, what they want to do is leave behind a trail of flammable chemicals and soaked rags at strategic points in the crawl space, and then light it up once they get outside. This would burn down the house while the bad guys are still in there, and provide a great distraction, while Ryan and Maya either make a run for it or counterattack as they try to run out. Once they're outside, I'd try going for the bad guys' truck first, but if that didn't work out, then their only other option would be to escape into the forest on foot. This is going to be extremely dangerous, even without a bunch of maniacs coming after them. So what they need to do is stick together and move as quietly as possible. Once they've put some solid distance between them and the attackers, the next step would be to break the line of sight and then abruptly change direction, which should hopefully lead them away down a false trail. Then it's up to them whether they follow the road back to civilization if it's safe enough, or find a hiding spot and wait until daylight to make their next move.
Thinking it through, Maya remembers that the house is built on a raised foundation, meaning that they might be able to get out through the crawl space without being noticed. As luck would have it, there happens to be an access panel right there in the bathroom. So while the freaks are all busy out in the living room, the two of them pull open the hatch and carefully make their way inside. They crawl through the cobweb-filled area looking for an exit, trying their best to stay as quiet as possible now that the intruders are standing directly above them. But as she's leading the way, crawling on her hands and knees, Maya accidentally puts her full body weight right onto an exposed nail that stabs all the way through her hand before she can even react. She lets out a short, involuntary scream that almost blows their cover, but quickly quiets down again as they hear the people up above them starting to catch on. There's a tense moment where it looks like Pinup here might be about to catch them, but luckily she turns and goes back to the piano without noticing that they're just a few feet away. They're not safe yet though, because Ryan still has to pull the nail out of Maya's hand, and after giving her a quick countdown to get ready, he grabs on and yanks the nail out with one pull, tearing off a piece of his own shirt as a way to wrap her hand in a temporary bandage. Finally, they make it to an exit underneath the front porch and decide to take cover in a shed on the other side of the driveway. But as they're running over, Ryan stumbles over a rock that he didn't see in the darkness and ends up accidentally dropping his inhaler. They find the shed door already unlocked and have to use Maya's Zippo lighter to illuminate the darkness inside, never noticing that Pinup here is already in there with them. As they creep from room to room looking for any weapons, they're able to find a farming tool that looks like it could definitely do some damage in a pinch. And not a moment too soon either, because a loud crash from somewhere outside could be a sign that the killers already know exactly where they're hiding. Leaving the weapon with Maya, Ryan heads upstairs to take a look around while she stands guard down below. While she's waiting, Maya notices the silhouette of a child quickly darting by out in the forest. And when she turns back to the door, there's Pinup again watching her from the darkness. Terrified, she instinctively falls backwards, only for Scarecrow to smash straight through it and grab onto her from behind. Screaming for help, Maya starts struggling to get away without any success. But just then, Ryan comes back in with the boomstick and fires a shot into the wall above their heads, scaring the attackers off for now. Racing over to Maya, he tells her that he found a shotgun with a whole bunch of ammo, and for a minute they start to think that this might level the playing field. But soon they're going to find out that even superior firepower won't be enough to keep them safe for very long. Shotgun in hand, Ryan leads the way back over to the house, carefully watching out for any signs of their attackers. The whole time, the strangers are quietly watching them too. As they approach the side of the cabin, they can hear what sounds like someone on the porch messing with the front door. Thinking that it must be one of the killers, Ryan tells Maya to stand back and swings around the corner to open fire on the man without a second's hesitation. It's a direct hit, and this would be a huge win for them, but there's just one small problem. As they walk over to confirm the kill, they realize that this wasn't one of the strangers at all. It was the homeowner finally responding to their call to fix the fridge. And Ryan falls down to the ground, completely devastated as he realizes what he's just done. That makes 2 down, with 2 more to go.
Okay. Well, that's awkward. Hey Ryan, I'm not sure if you know this, but you're actually supposed to shoot the bad guys, not old Grandpa Joe over here, who was just popping in to fix the fridge. Seriously, you guys are the worst Airbnb guests ever, but right now, your rating isn't what I'd be worried about, because Ryan, my friend, you have majorly f***ed up. The truth is that we wouldn't even be in this position if you just trusted your instincts back in town. You called this shit coming from a mile away, but still let Maya here talk you into staying at the obvious cabin in the woods scheme. And then when she was the one who started getting worried, you did a complete 180 and started acting like it was your idea to stay there all along. No, man. Do what the person who you were a few hours ago would have done and trust your gut next time. Or at least, trust your girlfriend when you find her hiding in a closet and she tells you that Michael Myers is posted up in the master bedroom. So you got yourself into a bad situation by making some terrible decisions. That's alright. We've all been there, but man, the sheer level of talent that it takes to still make things worse for yourself, even when you have one of the most devastating weapons that mankind has ever seen, would actually be impressive if it wasn't so embarrassing. You didn't even wait a fraction of a second to identify your target, just popped around the corner and started blasting. And I'd give you props for not hesitating if it was actually one of the killers, but clearly that wasn't the smartest move, to say the least. You ended up killing the only other person who maybe could have helped you two out, and now even if you managed to survive this, you're probably going to be facing some prison time for what you just did to Joe. All I'm saying is that I definitely wouldn't want to be you right now, because Ryan, you just f***ed up big time.
As the reality of what just happened sets in, Ryan realizes that this might not be so bad after all. The guy's Jeep is sitting right there, and even though he won't be driving it again anytime soon, this doesn't mean that they can't use it to make their escape. Grabbing the keys off of his body, they rush over to the car and quickly climb inside. But the moment that they do, a brick comes flying through the passenger side window, and the killers return to finish the job. Flooring it, Ryan throws the car into reverse and whips a quick U-turn, now just seconds away from a clear shot to freedom. But just then, Scarecrow comes flying up in his own pickup and absolutely broadsides them, stunning Ryan and pinning his leg between the driver's seat and the damaged door. Backing up, Scarecrow starts slamming his truck into the side of theirs over and over again, pushing them all the way across the driveway until they're finally pinned between him and a tree. Maya manages to climb out through the window, but Ryan's still too trapped to get out, telling her to run for it while she still has the chance. Now he finally remembers the shotgun sitting in the back seat, but as he takes aim at the cab of Scarecrow's truck, he realizes that the man has already disappeared, only for him to suddenly jump onto the hood and bury his axe into the windshield. Ryan fires back with a blast from the shotgun, but unfortunately somehow misses the point-blank shot, and Scarecrow decides to save him for later as he races off after Maya instead. Finally, Ryan manages to get his leg free and climb out through the broken windshield, staggering into the woods with the hopes of getting to his girlfriend before the killers do. Out in the woods, Maya is running for her life with a machete-wielding Dollface already following close behind her. After a while, she ends up right back at the collapsed bridge where the businessman made a wrong turn several years back, and quickly comes up with a new idea. Instead of running in another direction, she makes sure that the attackers can't see her before quietly sneaking down into the pile of leaves and twigs filling the ditch and carefully covering herself up with them in an attempt to hide. The noise of the twigs snapping ends up getting the attention of Dollface here, but after a tense moment where it seems like she can almost definitely see her, the killer turns and walks away back into the forest, leaving Maya alone for now. As soon as the coast is clear, Maya takes out the cell phone that she grabbed from the homeowner's truck and dials 911. She's able to get through, but the reception is spotty, and she's forced to whisper since she doesn't want Dollface and the others catching on. As she tries to move over for some better reception, she lets out a small scream when she notices that she's hiding right next to the businessman's rotting corpse. But she manages to tell the dispatcher their address just before the call completely drops out. With no sign of trouble for a little while now, Maya gets up and starts running back towards the cabin, but it turns out that the attackers aren't actually gone. And as she's taking cover behind a tree, Dollface suddenly lunges at her from the darkness, knocking her out with a strike to the head and dragging her away towards the house. A bit further away, Pinup here is searching for Ryan in the mist, but this time he manages to get the jump on her first, pointing his weapon straight at her head and ordering her to drop the knife. The woman does what he says, but instead of reacting with fear, she busts out some sick interpretive dance moves and starts laughing like a crazy lady, as she practically dares him to take the shot. He eventually decides that he's had enough and makes up his mind to take her out. But before he can pull the trigger, Scarecrow suddenly ambushes him from the side. When they finally wake up a little while later, Ryan and Maya both realize that they've been dragged back to the house and tied to chairs in the middle of the living room. There's nowhere left for them to run, and now that it's almost morning, it looks like the killers are ready for the last part of their game.
Okay, man, I hate to say it, but this looks like the end of the road for these two. The worst part is that they somehow still managed to end up in this position even though Ryan had a shotgun and countless chances to use it. Back at the house, they could have easily taken out Scarecrow while he was ramming into their Jeep, but instead they just sat there screaming as he revved his engine like they didn't have a shotgun within arm's reach. And then when he finally remembered that he did, Ryan managed to miss the shot from about 1 foot away. What happened with Pinup was even worse, because instead of just keeping his distance, he decided to get as close to her as humanly possible, and then did absolutely nothing as Scarecrow came running over from a mile away to knock him out. Getting the jump on them was the best chance that they've had all night, but Ryan completely blew it, and now he's about to pay the price. Getting caught was definitely not ideal, but since Maya was able to get a call through to the cops first, there's still a chance that they might make it out of this if they can just stall them or figure out a way to escape. I'd try secretly wriggling my wrists back and forth to hopefully loosen the ropes and get my hands free. Or if things really get desperate, just breaking the chair itself seems like a decent option. One of them could create a distraction while the other gets free, or get the killers to explain who they are and why they're doing this as a way to play off of their egos and stall for time. The thing is, that might work if these were ordinary killers, but Scarecrow and his friends do things a bit differently, and these two were already dead from the minute that they drove into town.
They're speechless at first as they realize that this is probably the end, but Ryan does his best to reassure Maya that everything's going to be alright. Terrified, she apologizes for even planning this trip in the first place, but he promises that he doesn't blame her for what ended up happening. With things looking the way they are, Ryan finally decides to ask Maya to marry him, and of course, she says yes, leaning in closer for a very emotional forehead touch. But hopefully, they have a quick ceremony because it's going to be a short honeymoon. All of a sudden, Ryan gasps as a kitchen knife is driven deep into his chest and twisted around inside the wound. A fatal blow from Pinup, who, along with Scarecrow and Dollface, has been quietly standing there watching them the whole time. Horrified, Maya reaches out to hold his hand one last time, but Scarecrow slowly walks behind them and kicks over Ryan's chair, knocking him to the floor, where he slowly bleeds to death right in front of her. Now the killers turn their attention to Maya, who starts shouting at them to explain why they're doing this. But Pinup leans forward and simply tells the woman that it was only because you were here. Scarecrow stands in front of her as Maya stares directly into his mask, telling him off one last time just before he stabs her in the same way. Wiping the tears from her eyes, he slowly walks behind her and kicks her chair over too, taking a deep sigh of satisfaction now that the game is finally over. That makes all 4 victims down. And just then, the killers hear the police making their way up the road and speed away in their truck just as the first of the squad cars turn into the driveway. But it turns out that this isn't the end of Maya's story after all. Sometime later, the woman wakes up in a hospital bed, having narrowly survived the attack. But as she sits up to have a look around, we see that her old buddy Scarecrow here is somehow already in the room right next to her. It looks like these two are going to get their chance at a rematch. But as for the rest of us, we can all learn an important lesson. If your car breaks down in a small town 300 miles from the nearest city, maybe it would be a better idea just to walk the rest of the way instead.
The Strangers Chapter 1. You know, I guess when you just gotta milk a franchise for another entry, might as well do a prequel. I remember liking the original Strangers back in the day when it came out, and the sequel, kinda liked it even better. Just had better music, overall different vibe. I would highly recommend checking out part 2. But anyways, let us know down in the comments what you would have done differently. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the Guy, we'll see you in the next episode, and have a damn good day.